Today we're going to be talking about the Moondrop variation TRIBRID. I felt a little bit burned by Moondrop last time I reviewed a more expensive IEM. This comes in at about $520, so it's definitely not cheap. I really like their lower end headphones, like their Aria and their Starfield, but the Illumination, which is about the same price as this, I didn't really care for so much. So today we're going to see if they can redeem themselves for the middleweight division of IEMs. Quick disclosure, Opos, the audio store, sent this out for review. Moondrop has nothing to do with this review, and of course, as always, all thoughts and opinions are my own. So this thing's construction is one of the coolest features about it, both externally and internally. So this features a 3D printed resin that I actually mistook for frosted glass on the outside. It's slightly transparent, it's pretty cool. It's also fairly dense, it like legit feels like a molded glass, it's pretty cool. It's got this metal faceplate with the minimal design on the outside. The ear stem itself is on the larger side of medium, so it's not going to fit smaller ear holes. Now the design itself to me feels much more like a custom than a universal, which is really cool for me, but because of the more aggressive design of it, it may not fit all ears as well as it does mine, so this could actually work against you rather than for you like it does for me. It does come with a copper cable that has a termination that you can change to a 2.5 millimeter or a 4.4 millimeter, but it's just a tip though, it's not a whole separate cable. Now internally this features one of my favorite systems, which is a kind of a triple driver design system. This actually features 5 drivers, but of 3 different types. One is going to be 3 balanced armature drivers for the mid-range, then it's going to use dynamic driver for the bass, gets a little bit of that thump in there, and then an E-stat driver for the top end. I'm a huge fan of this system. The Fur M5 uses the same triple driver system in it, and that headphone is not only much more expensive, but it's also one of my favorites. So going into this, reading that on the product page was pretty exciting for me. Okay, I'm gonna start with my favorite features and work down from there. But I will say this, if you have any experience with the Moondrop Aria, this headphone sounds like that headphone on steroids. It feels like it's just that tuning, but just hyper resolution, great dynamics for bass response, and even better mid-range response. It's still definitely a fun tuning. It's not a super accurate, super neutral, super boring tuning that some other Moondrops seem to be going for. It leans more towards the Aria side of things than it does the Starfield side of things, if you're familiar with those two. I think that's perfectly fine, because this thing, as just an enjoyment headphone, is pretty wonderful. So the overall tonality is slightly warmer shifted, and I really personally enjoy this. It doesn't feel dry or undersaturated or cold in any region of it. And I think the treble is probably my favorite feature of this headphone because it's got that glittery aspect where nothing is super bright, nothing is forced down your throat or anything like that. It just has hyper resolution, good texture, good tonality, and it's just an enjoyable, pleasing treble response to listen to. Now this may lean a little dark for some users. It does have a peak on about, it has a frequency response graph on the back of the box. It does have a peak about 9K. I'm much more sensitive to the 7K region though, and that area seems to really irritate me, and this has a pretty big dip in there, so it's kind of, again, sort of towards my preferences. But after about 10K, it starts to slope off quite a bit, so the upper region of treble response is not going to really be super forward. Now, despite that, I felt like the resolution of that region was really good, but coming from something like that Fur M5, which is about almost 6 times more expensive than this headphone is, that has a more fulfilled upper treble response, and it is more lively there. But given the price differentiation between these two, I'm perfectly willing to make the sacrifices that this has. So it's higher resolution, but lower forwardness. There is a pretty big dip in the mid-range, a lot like the Aria. I felt like the separation factor between the vocalist and the background though was still really good. And so you still get this seemingly isolated vocalist, and they're actually pretty broad. They can be pretty big, but the frequency response is just not as forward for that. I think this headphone would really benefit from a more forward mid-range experience, though I don't find it bad. It's pretty enjoyable to listen to, but vocals definitely feel like they're just part of the mix rather than the focus. And this could just be up to your preference on which one you like. I don't mind the tuning of this personally, but I do tend to prefer a little bit more forward mid-range tuning. Now bass response is really good. The dynamic driver does what it's supposed to do in this system, which is provide good resolution, excellent punch. I feel like you get that. And I feel like with this headphone, you have a good mix of satisfying thump for those people wanting more rhythm-based music to really stand out, but you also get a decent amount of texture. Now, the reason why this is sort of on the end of the list is because while it's very good, it's got this great kind of really filled out region in the sub bass below about 40 hertz. It feels very full there, and it's really clean in the mid bass. I just don't feel like it's like 5 times better than the Aria. It's good, it's better, it's clearly superior, but it's not way, way better, if that makes any sense. Imaging and Soundstage, similar to just about every IEM that features an ESAT driver, is super precise. The body, the main bulk of the positioning for the soundstaging is actually fairly intimate, but then you get something that's like way off in the distance, and it really shows you the capability of this driver if it's paired with really, really good music. But you do get an overall more personal listening experience with kind of spotty performance on the real outskirts, but it's capable of it. So it's kind of weird in that way. Okay, so some competition at lower prices and at higher prices. The sound staging is good, but it's not the widest I've seen. I've even seen much cheaper IEMs like the Final Audio A4000 that is wider in terms of sound staging. I haven't found a great mid-range performing headphone for this price. I found good ones, but I haven't found a great one. So I'm still kind of on that search for a really mid-range focused IEM in this sort of middleweight price tag. The bass response is very good. It's very good. It's definitely better than the Illumination, like by far, and it's better than any other Moondrop that I've heard. But it does get beat out by slightly more expensive IEMs like the IE900 from Sennheiser. But again, that's like double the price tag, so it's not exactly fair. So overall, I do think that they fully redeemed themselves with this one. This should have been what the Illumination was for the price. I'm glad you have your options, but if you're into the more V-shaped sort of fun tuning of the variation and you're looking around this price tag for a well-built IEM, I do think that this is a fair IEM for its price tag and its sound quality. Now the value position of this, I do think it's like on the upper end of what I would charge for. I do think that the price tag is fair, but I wouldn't really say that it's a world beater above it like some of the lower end Moondrops are. They really hit above their price category, and this one is about even with what I would expect at this price range. It's got a lot of high quality features. You're starting to see some really special features pop up, but it also has some detriments that keep it from really skyrocketing into the stratosphere of competition. Okay guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Thanks a lot for watching. Till the next video, my name's Josh, signing off.